for news that's short, sharp and shrewd.
Are you talking about the podcast or me?
Both.
Backhanded compliment.
This is Up Late with Ben Harvey. Cognitive distortion.
Which will hereby be known as the Nev Power defence. The former boss of Fortescue Metals Group is in the shit for breaching quarantine rules by illegally flying his helicopter into WA. He's now saying he broke the law because of inaccurate patterns of thinking brought on by stress. The kind of stress you would experience, I presume, when you're illegally flying your helicopter across a border in flagrant breach of COVID quarantine protocols.
My brains are going into my feet!
So what is cognitive distortion exactly?
The concept has been around since the 1960s, pioneered by an American psychoanalyst called Aaron T. Beck. Beck's considered the father of cognitive behaviour therapy. Apparently it's a common symptom of many different mental health disorders. The condition is hard to pin down medically, and I reckon Nev's hoping that means it will be hard to pin down legally.
It's just the vibe of the thing.
His lawyers don't have much to work with here. They can't say he didn't understand the quarantine rules because he was the chair of the COVID Reconstruction Task Force. And they can't say he was confused about aviation protocols because apart from owning his own jet and helicopter, he was up until very recently the chair of Perth Airport and currently serves as chair of the RFDS. But Nev's lawyer, Sam Van Dongen, had to say something. He had to offer the judge some kind of reason not to throw away the key.
Throw me a frickin' bone here.
Sam's been angling for a big fine, but when he suggested that to the judge, he got shut down. We may not be on the same page in that regard, is what Magistrate Elizabeth Wood said in what is a truly understated sphincter clencher of a reply. He fails to fill out a G2G pass. He lands at Jandakot instead of Police Officer Heavy Perth Airport, where he was meant to go, then not only fails to quarantine, but puts on his tux and goes to the telethon ball, a charity function attended by politicians and many parents of immunocompromised children.
Bad move, Grandpa.
He couldn't have done much more to this up, but it's not in society's interest for this guy to go to jail. We'll all be better off if he's made to pay a howlingly big fine, do a heap of social work, and continue in business, which is what he's good at. Everyone's applauding Liz Gaines for doing well at FMG over the past couple of years. It's an easy job when iron ore's at $200 a tonne. Grover could be boss and you'd still get rich.
Ooh.
Nev was boss when iron ore was under 40. He saved the company. When he took over from Twiggy as CEO in 2011, Fortescue was churning out 55 million tonnes a year at $53 a tonne. By the time he left, output had trebled and costs were down by 75%. We need people like this in business. He's a productive guy. On top of the Perth Airport and RFDS roles, he's Deputy Chair of WA gas producer Strike Energy, Deputy Chair of America's Metals Acquisition Corp, a Director of Disability Services provider APM, and Chairman of the Foundation for the WA Museum, which is where his career will end up if he's asked to squat and cough.
Okay, so you don't think he should go to jail?
I think he's an exceptional businessman, he's a great business leader and I like him, but if he doesn't go to jail, every anti-vax nutbag is going to say it's proof of a government conspiracy. And normal people like you and me will rightly ask why it's one rule for him and a different rule for these guys. Melbourne Footy Club tragics Hayden Burbank and Mark Babbage spent 3 months inside after sneaking into WA to watch the grand final. It's not going to be a picnic for Nev if he does go inside as well. It doesn't matter if you're an axe murderer or someone busted for a victimless white-collar crime like this, all new prisoners go straight to Hakea. You end up in minimum security, but it's the big house at the start.
Yeah, well, he's no shrinking violet.
Nev's a 6'4" Queensland cattle station owner who weighs in at $1.20 and has got fists the size of cauliflowers. He's the size of Von Miller.
Miller! Ball comes out, but
the good news is the entertainment at the Super Bowl has proved that a criminal record isn't always a career killer. And Nev, if all else fails, remember Ben Harvey's jail tip number 9. If someone is about to come into your cell to do you harm, you cover yourself in your own shit so they won't touch you.
It was wrong then. It's still wrong now.
As with all court matters, there is only one guaranteed outcome. The lawyers will get rich.
Now, you're an expert at defaming people. What do you think of the Palmer-McGowan trial?
Palmer has listed litigation as one of his hobbies, as we all know, so his lawyers know their way around the courts. But when they sued McGowan for defamation, they probably weren't expecting that he'd sue them back. Justice Michael Lee will decide if McGowan defamed Palmer when he said this.
Mr Palmer is the enemy of the state. He is the enemy of Western Australia.
Along with a bunch of other half-assed insults.
Please, stop being a jerk.
And that's not even including the name-calling.
He's a menace to Australia. The biggest loser.
McGowan, for his part, reckons Palmer defamed him when he said, "This is an outlaw swinging his gun around to protect himself and his Attorney-General from the criminal law," and called him a dictator. McGowan and Palmer have the same defence. It's called qualified privilege. They had a right and a moral obligation to say the things they did. Some legal eagles reckon McGowan has the upper hand here because he's a sitting politician as opposed to an aspiring one.
And whoever wins, it's not like there's a lot of money in it.
Not for someone like Palmer, it's like 2 hours' work. For non-economic loss such as hurt feelings, the Defo Act says you can't be awarded more than $250,000 in the most egregious cases. And it's not the damages that sting, it's when one party's ordered to cover the other party's costs. McGowan's lawyer, Brett Walker, advertises a rate of $25,000 a day.
It's a lot of quiche, you know, like a cake.
Palmer's lawyer, Peter Gray SC, is going for maximum damages because he says McGowan really hurt Clive's feelings. Gray has subpoenaed private text messages between the Premier and John Quigley, which will be aired publicly later in the year. And recent history suggests texts between politicians can end up being quite embarrassing.
And it's interesting that the judge has ordered McGowan appear in person.
That's because when you're talking about how hurt your feelings are, people need to see if you're genuine. They've got to actually see the whites of your eyes. They're going to have to put on a pretty good show, though, because they are both full of crap. They loved this fight. Every time Clive bagged McGowan, the Premier's approval rating went up. And every time McGowan slagged Clive, it was more ammunition for his tear down that wall advertising campaign. With COVID now detected in 26 schools in WA, it doesn't look like McGowan's going to be tearing down the wall. He's going to be putting another brick in it. If you'd like to watch Up Late with me, Ben Harvey, search for The West Australian on YouTube.